Welcome to July 10th, everyone. We are heading into a full moon this week at 21 Cancer and Capricorn, so across that axis. If you have anything at 21 degrees in Capricorn or Cancer, or in Libra or Aries, you probably will feel this full moon a little more strongly, but for everyone, it's a good time to be reevaluating your boundaries, structures in your life, and how you guard yourself, as well as how you put yourself out in the world. So, looking at that inner world versus that outer world. Good time for that for you all. This week, we are looking at labeling your thoughts. And last week, we looked at accepting our thoughts. So, when we get into labeling our thoughts, we're thinking more about evaluating how we use our thinking. Thinking is an interesting thing because it's evolved in humans to be different than how, say, animals think, where previously, before we developed this sort of consciousness, thinking was used to problem solve. And then humans evolved to a point where we got so good at problem solving that we essentially didn't really have problems. Like, we figured out food, we figured out shelter, figured out self-defense to keep ourselves safe, to keep ourselves warm. And then the brain kind of lost its purpose, but it had evolved enough that it could actually understand that it had lost its purpose. And I think that's when humanity started to see a lot of the problem creation that our minds do now. So fixating on things like being slighted is kind of a evolution of our consciousness where, if you call your pet a mean name, he's not, there's some people that'll say he'll do revenge things to you, but realistically, they can feel your aggression towards them, but if you call them a mean name in a cute sound and it's not actually sounding aggressive towards them, then most likely they're just going to go on about their day. They're not going to hold on to it. They're not going to think about it 3 years from now. They're not going to wake up in the middle of the night with a flashback of that one time you called them a mean name. But humans do. And I wouldn't say this is a super beneficial evolution, but I do think it's a necessary evolution in the sense that things evolve better if they struggle. So if the human mind essentially fixed all our struggles, then we stagnated ourselves to finding any new, better ways of being as a species. And it's like our mind almost created a new problem so that we could continue to evolve and struggle. Not that I think everyone enjoys struggling, but just that is the point. We're not supposed to enjoy it. But nice thing for us is that we have ways of figuring out our newer problems. And one of those things that has been used is labeling our thoughts. And the reason we do that is so that we can get a better idea of what we spend most of our time thinking about. Because thinking about how to solve a problem is often beneficial, but thinking about the problem for days on end in a sort of circular way that doesn't actually offer any solutions is often more anxiety producing or more stress producing in a way that can affect our health than if we were to just take a few moments and say, okay, now I'm going to think about this problem. And then after that, go, okay, I'm done thinking about that problem right now. Maybe I'll spend more time on it later, which sounds like a really nice thing if you could do it, but it's challenging for most people because we don't even realize we're thinking most of the time. We're just so deep into it that it just kind of sweeps us away. So this is just sort of this first step in becoming more aware of the fact that a lot of our thinking is sort of addictive and controlling in a way that we don't really even realize we're doing it. And the more we're aware of it, the less likely it is to take us over and kind of push us into suffering situations. So we start out with our questions, like always, and I will post them at the bottom so you can always read them after. Feel free to either write these down or meditate on them. The first question is, what do I find myself thinking about the most? Am I able to change or manage my thinking when it gets on certain topics? Does my mood or emotions change when I think about certain things? What topics of thinking cause me the greatest emotional changes? And then we move into our practice, which is the actual labeling of thoughts. So what you're going to do, if this is new for you, you can try just doing a 5-minute increment. So set a timer if you need to. Or you can just try to notice throughout the day. And I do think there's a benefit to starting to notice on a regular basis so that you're always more aware of whether your thoughts are useful or not. And I'm going to give you the 4 labels that I usually use. It doesn't mean you have to use these. If you find a thought fits into a specific category that isn't one that I'm saying, then you can just use that. The 4 thought labels I use are judgments, imagining possibilities, future planning, or remembering. Future planning would probably be the only one that is often more useful thoughts, simply because with future planning, sometimes you do need to go, okay, I need to pick this up at the grocery store. That's future planning. For me, I think the most useful thing is, especially with all this technology we have, is to have a list of things that I need to do so that I don't fixate or focus on them and keep thinking about them needlessly. Because whether we realize it or not, thinking actually requires energy. And all the thinking we do can actually take away a lot of energy that we don't realize we're using up just on that. Being able to pare down how much we think about certain things can actually make us feel a little more energetic and a little more awake. So usually if I have a future planning thought, I will make a note to myself and then I don't have to keep ruminating on it. And another quick note, a lot of people think that thinking is how they solve problems, but a lot of people who have discovered a lot of interesting things, like made big breakthroughs in research, often say that their greatest ideas come to them when they stop trying to think about the problem. So if they go for a walk or if they go to bed, the answers often come to them when they're not thinking. And I don't know if all of us realize that that's pretty common. That is when you're in more of a meditative state. So if you're doing something like cleaning or dancing around or just hanging out with your friends, sometimes the answer to the problem will just pop into your head. Our brains tell us that we need to think all the time to solve problems, but realistically, it seems pretty clear that a lot of solutions to difficult problems come to us when we stop trying to solve them. So just to help you, because I know a lot of minds are going to be saying, well, no, we need to think it's really important. But this is a good theory to test, is whether thinking less actually gives you more solutions to problems because they come to you in the space you have more available to you when you're not sitting around thinking constantly. So yeah, set your timer, label your thoughts. Whenever a thought pops up, label it. And like I said, I use judgments, imagining possibilities, future planning, and remembering, just because those categories seem to work for me. If suddenly I'm recalling something that happened, I'm going, oh, that's remembering. If I'm imagining something I want to happen, okay, that's imagining. And then if I'm just thinking snarky thoughts, that's my judgments, right? Just starting to become aware of them. And it's not about stopping the thoughts, it's just about clarity on what's happening so that you can work with those thoughts more clearly and maybe see whether you're spinning in circles too much. And then for our grounding exercise, we are going to use an old meditation technique I used to use that I really enjoy for clearing thoughts. And for all of these exercises, remember, there's a class every week, so you can always just go back if you don't think this one's working for you right now. The idea is more to build up a whole bunch of different techniques in your mind so that whatever situation you're going through, you have a technique for managing it. And if this isn't where you're at now, you're always welcome to go back to some of the previous ones. It's more about collecting techniques. And I think that's really useful for humans because no two people are going to be in the same place at the same time. So having all these different techniques available to you just means you're more versatile at dealing with problems. So for a grounding exercise, it's just a matter of sitting, standing, or lying down where you feel comfortable. You're going to take a few deep breaths. Just try to relax any tension in your body. So if your shoulders are tight, let them relax. If you feel like you're holding a ball of tension in your stomach area, chest area, take a deep inhale and an exhale to release. And relax your jaw and relax your face. And with our eyes closed, we're just going to notice any thoughts that come into our mind. And if a thought shows up, you're going to put a bubble around it and let it float off into the distance. And if it pops, then it's gone. And if it goes off into the distance, then it's gone that way. whatever works for you. And if another thought shows up, you make another bubble. Just sitting quietly, watching whatever comes up. And then creating a bubble around it and letting it float away. And you can continue to do that for as long as you feel comfortable. But also feel free to just close your time. But also just feel free to close your eyes anytime you feel overwhelmed and allow your thoughts to float away. And we'll see you next week for more.